Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead Season 7. And what I'm going to be doing in this video is reviewing the latest episode of The Walking Dead, which was called Service. If you are not caught up with The Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I suggest you exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay, so overall, I thought that this episode was pretty good in the sense of it had great acting. I thought Jeffrey Dean Morgan was great. You had, of course, Andrew Lincoln doing a wonderful performance. I thought that it was very nice to get a look into how Alexandria was dealing with the aftermath of Negan introducing himself to the group. I liked the tense nature that there was in the episode. I thought that was pretty exciting throughout the whole episode. But emotionally, it was another one of those episodes that really did drain you. Not as much as the season premiere, but I think that this episode was just really hard to see Negan and his people come through the gates and just absolutely take everything that Rick's group had worked hard for, to see Negan frequently taunting everybody in the community, to see him being the way he is. That's hard as a viewer to watch, and I think that this episode definitely left us feeling down, and it wasn't until the very last scene that we really had a slight bit of hope, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen from there, so I will be interested to see. And as I said, this episode dealt with Negan and the Saviors coming to Alexandria to take. As we know, Negan expects the communities to give him things in exchange for him not killing them, and he will come in if he finds things that he thinks are useful or interesting to his group. He will take them. He was apparently a little early coming to Alexandria, but nonetheless, he was let in. And you saw throughout the episode that Negan, being there the way that he is, he really, in a sense, is a guy that is very, very manipulative, and is the guy who is really trying to make it seem like he's doing you a favor. He's doing you a service. That, in a sense, he is he killed the walker at the front gate at the beginning of the episode, basically saying, hey, that was a service. I just saved you, and you're going to perform a service for me. And it's kind of really what's going on here. It's a relationship where you're manipulated into believing that you're doing something that is good for your community, as well as you're getting a good deal. Like, for example, in this episode, Negan's group took different things. They took many of the mattresses out of the people's homes, and, they were going to look at other things. The main thing that happened in this episode that really shifted things was Carl. We do see in this episode that many individuals do not, and still are not okay with Negan's group coming here and doing this. They want to fight back. They want to do something about this. They're not going to be like Rick and lay down and let Negan do this. They're angry. We saw Michonne acting that way in this episode a little bit near the end, Rosita throughout the episode, and Carl. And what Carl ends up doing is he shoots at the wall near one of the Saviors when they came in. I think they were going to take the whole medicine cabinet, or they were going to take a lot of the medicine. And of course, Negan, Rick, they all run in there, go, what's going on? And you see Carl basically saying, look, we're not going to deal with this, Dad. They need to leave. Basically threatening Negan, telling him, look, I'm not afraid of you. You need to get out of here. And of course, Negan is very intrigued with Carl. I mean, I think he sees a lot of himself in Carl. He is very interested in him. But nonetheless, Negan can't take any of that. If Negan shows himself to be weak and let things happen, then he's going to let people think, oh, it's okay. You can shoot my guys, or you can beat them up, or you can talk back, and I won't do anything. So Negan really punishes Rick's group in this episode, and instead of killing somebody, what he decides to do is he decides to take away the threat, that being the guns. So he ends up going to the armory with Olivia, and Olivia shows them where the guns are at. They find out that she has, of course, that log of every single gun, which sadly turns out to be a bad thing for our group, because what ends up happening is they start to take the guns out, And what ends up happening is they find out that 2 of them are missing. So there's 2 guns missing, and they don't know where they're at. And Negan's not going to let that go. Negan is not going to give them the opportunity to get one up on them. And he decides to basically threaten everybody. He says, look, you find those guns, you bring them to me, and if you don't, I'm going to kill Olivia. So we see this looming threat of potentially somebody else dying, which makes Rick kick into action. And that's really a lot of what Rick's role in this episode is. He really wants to make this relationship work because he realizes that, you know, Abraham and Glenn died in the season premiere. He's taken on a lot of that blame, and he wants to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else. So he's willing to do what Negan wants. They literally turn up a lot of the houses, you know, rummage around to find them. And what ends up happening is Rick does eventually find the guns. Remember back in season 6, episode 5, when Spencer raided the cabinet of food and he took some of it from the pantry? Well, he also took the guns. So he ended up taking the guns and hiding them, and he still had things that were hidden in there from that episode. Rick found them, pulled them out. He presents the guns to Negan, says, hey, listen, I found them. Don't do anything. Willing to hand them over. And before this, he had brought everybody in the town into the church to talk with them and basically ask them, who has them? We need to do this, arguing that this is the best way for them to stay alive. We see that Rick is being forced to do things that really in regular life he wouldn't want to do, but he's doing it for the sake of his people. You see the love that Rick shares for many of the individuals behind that wall, and you also see that he wants to protect them. He doesn't want any more dead bodies on his conscience. Now, what ends up happening is earlier in the episode, Michonne went out to go target practicing. She takes one of the rifles, which turns out to be a rifle they took from the Savior's compound, and she practices with it. She's not a very good shot, though. And what I'm presuming is that she was doing it to prepare for a fight. I think that in Michonne's mind, she's thinking, if Rick's not going to do something, I'm going to do something. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to be ready for that day when Negan least expects it, and I'm going to take him out. Well, she goes back to the community, and Rick sees and remembers that she had the rifle. Rick actually goes to Michonne and says, listen, you have one of the rifles. I need to give it to Negan. And Michonne's like, are you kidding me? Like, we need to defend ourselves. Like, are you really just going to hand it over? And Rick says, I need to make this work. If everybody in this community is not on board with this, it's not going to work. And Rick knows what Negan can do. He's already done it. He's threatened to do it. So, and also, in another sense, Rick also has figured out, in a sense, how this relationship works. And he realizes if he makes Negan happy, Negan's going to give them a little bit of leeway. And what ends up happening is Rick gets the rifle, takes it to Negan and goes, hey, one of my people had it. She went out to go hunt. Michonne actually brought back a deer, which she gives to the Saviors. And Rick says, look, it wasn't in the report, but I'm giving it to you. And Negan is just absolutely ecstatic about that. He's literally like, whoa, Rick, like, this is amazing. You figured it out. You know my rules. And, you know, congratulates Rick for really making that effort. And because of this gesture, Negan basically tells Rick, you want me to leave? You want me to take my people and leave? And Rick says yes, and Negan says, okay, we're done. We're going to leave. So they end up leaving the community. And a couple of other things that were going on in this episode as well. Daryl was there, but he didn't say a word in the episode. They were using Daryl as labor to bring the stuff onto the truck. And near the end of the episode, Rick tries to bargain. You know, he realizes that if he cooperates with Negan, Negan might be willing to give him something back. And Rick asks if Daryl can come back and stay. And Negan at first says no, and then he goes, well, wait a minute. Let me see if Daryl can convince me. Let me see if he can convince me to do this. And Daryl doesn't say a word. Daryl is silent. And it makes it seem like Daryl might really have been broken, that maybe the Saviors have done something to him within these last, maybe it was a couple of days. You know, you don't know the timeline, but Daryl doesn't say anything, and he ends up going back with the Saviors. Another storyline that you had going on was Rosita and Spencer. When they come into when the Saviors come to Alexandria, they send Rosita and Spencer out to go find Daryl's bike. This is something that Dwight wanted them to do, probably because Dwight just wants to mess more with Daryl. So Rosita and Spencer go out. Now, of course, before they left, Dwight took their guns, dumped out their water so that they wouldn't be gone for forever, that they could only go so far to just get the bike and come back, or else they might be in danger. Well, Rosita catches on that she realizes they are going to take the guns. And Rosita, again, is also not somebody who is really accepting of this. It's not surprising, but I think that, you know, you see more resistance from her than anybody else. And I think that it's really that they just don't, the Saviors, I don't think, see her as a threat. I think that also Rosita is smart enough to not mouth off. She really just stays silent and acts more, you know, like, all right, fine, you know, just very standoffish, I guess, if that might be the word. And it's enough that the Saviors don't do anything to her. But she goes out, they get the bike, and then they realize that they're in the area where they killed several of those Saviors. Rosita heads off into the woods and finds walkers, and some of them are the Saviors that were killed in Season 6, Episode 14, when Denise was killed. And she kills those walkers, and she's able to find an empty gun on one of them. And, you know, Spencer's like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing? And Rosita goes, do you realize that they're going to take our guns? We need to be ready. Look what I did for one gun, Spencer. Like, we need to prepare for this. And Spencer, in this episode, he's also not very supportive of the Saviors coming. I mean, nobody really is, but he's very vocal about it, but different. He blames Rick. Unlike other people that blame Meegan and the Saviors, Spencer blames Rick for everything that happened. And he kind of tells Rosita, he's like, well, this is our lives. We're just going to have to get used to it. But when he goes back to the community and he talks with Rick, he really blames Rick for everything. And when he gets back, of course, he finds out that Rick found the guns and found the food. And Rick basically just calls him out on it. It's like, dude, you are weak. You are lucky that you got behind these walls. You're lucky you were here with us, because otherwise you'd be dead. And Spencer ends up mouthing off saying, yeah, Rick, we are so, you know, it's so great living behind these walls, and we are so lucky, and we are so fortunate to have you as a leader, and blah, blah, blah. You get it. Well, for the only time in the episode we see Rick, you know, old Rick come back, and he basically tells Spencer, the moment that Spencer brings up Abraham and Glenn, he says, Spencer, you ever bring that up again, I will break your jaw, knock your teeth out. You understand? And Spencer, of course, says, yes, I get it. So, you know, we see in this episode a lot of dissension in different ways, and people are doing different things on their own to fight back, in a sense. But we see that Rick is giving in. And the reason, again, is because he wants to protect everybody. And he has a conversation with Michonne at the end of the episode because Michonne is very upset about this. Rick tells her, he says, look, we have to accept this. And he relates back to Shane and Lori, their relationship, and Judith. And Rick recognizes for the first time, because we've always wondered the paternity of Judith. We've always known more likely than not it was Shane, but we don't know what Rick was thinking. Did Rick just push that out of his mind? How did he deal with that? Well, he gives us insight in this episode, and Rick says, I know Judith is not mine. She's Shane's. But I had to accept that because she's my daughter. She's somebody I love. I want to protect her. I want to raise her. And in order for me to do that, I had to accept that she was Shane's. And he has. And Rick says the only way that I can protect everybody, the only way that we can continue to live and not have everybody dying is to accept this. And he asks Michonne to do this. And Michonne says that she will try. Well, the last couple scenes of the episode, Michonne ends up going out and walking around near where she was doing sniper training. And she all of a sudden sees smoke off in the distance. She walks towards it. The Saviors burned the mattresses that they took. The Saviors burned them, just put them out on the side of the road and burn them. Like, really? Like, you're really going to be that wasteful of resources? But I think that it just goes to show why the Saviors do what they do. They probably have more than they ever would need for a while. I mean, you know, I think that they all have mattresses. They all have things. We saw the Savior's compound, but it's to show their dominance, their force, and also to keep the status quo over at the sanctuary. And that just really makes Michonne angry to know that they took items from them and just burned them, not even using them. So I think we're going to see Michonne still resisting when we pick up with their story next time, whenever that is. And the final scene is really the only point of trying to fight back that we see in the episode, because when Meegan took the guns, he wanted to see if they were working. So he took one of them and he fired a bullet out of it. He fired it through a window. It worked. And he left the bullet casing laying on the ground. Well, Rosita, it turns out that she took that gun from that walker, and she basically has it, and she's going to find a way to use it. Well, she sees the bullet laying on the ground. She goes to Eugene's door and knocks on it. And, of course, we know that Eugene found a bullet-making factory back in Season 6, and she asks him, "Can you make me a bullet?" And that's the end of the episode. So I think we are going to see Rosita probably maybe going rogue and doing something that maybe other people are not going to know or agree with. Because at this point, I think that everybody realizes the tough situation, and the only way that somebody's going to get something done, I think, is if they do it on their own. That may be dangerous, but I think that Rosita has some kind of a plan. What it is, I don't know. I'll speculate on that in another video, but obviously we saw a very mixed episode of reactions, emotions, how people are feeling, and I think it's going to play into the last half of this first part of Season 7. I'll be interested to see. So let me know what you guys think. Did you like the episode? What are some things that you noticed about it? Don't be afraid to let me know. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming, and if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you all very much for watching.